wonder how you're surviving the storms of life. As I write this, in the midst of the global pandemic, we're living in a time of significant change and loss and uncertainty. Not surprising then that we're all experiencing a multitude of emotional storms. Jesus knew about storms, and he was able to calm them. This short video features extracts from a CD entitled Calming the Storm. Based on words from scripture and enhanced with music and sound effects, the CD brings the gospel story to life and helps you to connect with Jesus through guided meditation. It's a powerful form of praying. Pam Rose has very kindly endorsed this CD, calling Pathways to Healing, quote, a wonderful CD series. So welcome. Welcome to this taste of my Pathways to Healing series. Licensing regulations prevent me from placing the whole recording online, but the 4 CDs are on special offer to help you through the pandemic and beyond. And here's a taste of what to expect. After a short introduction, the music of Margaret Risser sets the scene for a prayerful encounter. And the scripture, which in this case comes from Mark chapter 4, is read. The gospel story of Jesus calming a violent storm is interpreted through a narrative spoken by one of the disciples.
We were often in the boat with Jesus these days, his preferred way to travel. It was one of the only ways we could escape the crowds, get a moment's peace, regroup, as it were, between his teachings and his healings. Yes, we were often in the boat with him, and I confess I rather liked that. It made me feel an important part of things. Me being the one who lived the whole of my life in fishing boats. Some of the others were fishermen too, of course, in the life they'd had before he called us to this different way of living, drew us into this crazy adventure, but I was the one with the years of experience. I love the Galilee Sea. There's no nicer feeling than the sway of the boat beneath your feet, the sting of the breeze on your skin, the sound of the waves lapping against the wood, the smell of fish in the tangled nets, and the solitude under the wide open sky. I love the water. It's where I feel at peace.
Simple meditative reflections are woven through the narrative to help the listener to imaginatively enter the scene.
We'd been anchored just offshore for most of the day, as he stood in the boat and taught the crowds. It's amazing the way the sound carries across Galilee like that. They could hear every word, better than if he'd been in the midst of them.
Can you imagine yourself there, sitting in the boat, anchored just offshore? That shore where vast crowds of people have gathered to listen to Jesus. And you are there in the boat, watching Jesus teaching, listening to him as he stands in your boat and teaches people on the shore. So as you begin to engage with the story, notice what the boat looks like. Who else is in the boat with you? What can you see and hear as you glance around the boat? Just be there, in as much detail as you can.
Further narrative from the disciple, brought to life by subtle sound effects, leads the listener inside the violent storm, and the listener is invited to bring to mind any inner storms that are raging in their own life.
A sharp veering of the wind was the first hint of trouble. I noticed it on the back of my neck, a veering wind and a chill in the air. And then came a rumble of thunder and a crash of lightning over the distant hills, and the characteristic heaviness of a storm brooding overhead. We just kept going. We were used to the way the weather could change on this lake. There wasn't usually much that fazed us. Oh boy, this turned out to be different. This was one hell of a violent storm, and before too long even I began to get nervous. The boat was pitching and turning, mighty waves lifting us up high one minute, dropping us down the next, tossing us to and fro like a little child's toy. Wave after threatening wave, towering above us, then crashing down over us, swamping us, pitching us into chaos. In all my days, I've never known a thunderstorm like it.
In all my days, the disciple says, I've never known a thunderstorm like it. One hell of a violent storm. Mighty waves crashing over us, wave after threatening wave. I wonder if you've known times when your emotions have felt like that. Wave after threatening wave, crashing over you, throwing you off balance. Let the memory of those moments just resurface now. Allow yourself to feel them.
The storm rages and the tension in the story builds to the point where the disciples think they're going to drown, and they cry out to Jesus.
It was the mighty crash and the snapping of the mast and the brilliant light up the sky flash of lightning that drew our attention to the back of the boat. And there he was, Jesus, still fast asleep, utterly drenched, but asleep. How a man could sleep through that, I'll never know. We'd all been so focused on keeping the boat afloat and frantically trying to save our lives that we just hadn't noticed. "Wake him up! For God's sake, wake him up!" Matthew cried. "We're all going to drown, and him along with us." Still the storm raged, and the boat heaved and creaked and threatened to break into 1,000 pieces. Andrew's voice carried over the roar of waves. "Someone wake him up!" I didn't so much stumble towards him as fall on top of him, as another mighty crack of lightning split the sky, Then James careered across the deck too, and together we shook him and shouted, "Master, wake up! For goodness sake, wake up! Save us! We're all going to drown!"
And once again, the listener is invited to connect this with any emotional storms in their own life.
We were tossing around in the wild, untamable power of the mother of all storms in a boat that was threatening to break apart and sink us all, and he said, "Why are you afraid?"
I wonder, do you ever feel yourself being tossed around in a storm? Maybe a storm of emotions that might be threatening to break you. Be with that storm right now.
The climax of the Gospel story comes when Jesus stands up and calms the waves. And the listener, who is by now quite deeply into the scene, is invited to receive his words spoken into their own storm.
"Where's your faith?" he said again, as I slid across the deck, and somehow, whilst we were all slipping and sliding and tumbling around him, he just quietly stood up, turned intentionally towards the sea, stretched out his arm, and with deep authority in his voice said to the waves, "Be still." And they were. In an instant, the wild sea was as smooth as could be, and the boat slowly rocked itself to a position of rest in the stillness of the water.
Hear Jesus saying to those waves, and to any waves of emotion surging in you, "Peace, be still." Receive those words and notice your mind and body settling into a place of rest. Just as the sea calms and the boat rocks itself to a position of rest, notice yourself falling calmly into stillness. Still, calm, safe. The storm subsided.
Peace, be still. Calming ambient music and some final thoughts then enable the listener to prayerfully receive that peace. Then more lovely music from Margaret Ritzer and a simple prayer conclude the experience. This has been nothing more than a taste. There is no substitute for listening to the full CD. But I hope you've enjoyed this tiny insight into how you might be helped by imaginative prayer. Every healing in the Gospels begins with an encounter with Jesus, and these CDs can help you to have such an encounter, here, now, in your own living room. Lots of people have told me how helpful the CDs are. So here's a special offer for you. There are currently 2 CDs in this series, and during this time of global disruption, I'm making them available at the really special offer price of £6 each, or buy both together for £10, plus a little bit more for postage. If these might help you or someone you know, head over to my online shop at www.patmarsh.weebly.com. I hope you explore imaginative prayer, and I really look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.